I have spent more nights than I can count, sitting on a cold bathroom floor with my back against the tub and a shaking dog pressed so hard into my side that I could feel his heart going like something trapped was trying to break out of his chest. So, if you love a dog who comes apart when the sky starts exploding, then you already understand the particular helplessness I am talking about, and you deserve something better than the tired advice most people hand you. When the neighborhood started fireworks around 9, he went from a sleepy lump on the couch to a creature I did not recognize, pacing and drooling and digging at the carpet by the back door, like he was trying to tunnel his way out of the world. I made the mistake almost every loving owner makes, which is that I got loud and anxious right along with him, hovering and repeating his name in that high, tense voice. Every bit of it only made things worse, because he was reading me the whole time, and what he read was that even the person he trusted most now believed this was something to fear. Before anything practical, you need to understand what is genuinely happening inside your dog on a night like this, because once you grasp it, you will never again feel that flash of frustration when he will not settle, and you will stop making the small mistakes that pour fuel on the fire. It begins with his ears, which are nothing like ours, since dogs pick up frequencies far beyond our range, and a firework that lands as loud but bearable to you is genuinely painful to him, sharp enough that veterinarians describe it as capable of causing real ear pain. On top of that sits the one thing he cannot do, which is understand, because you know the booms mean a celebration and a barbecue and a holiday. At the same time, your dog has no such story to tell itself. Hence, his brain takes the sudden explosions and the flashing lights, the curtains and the low vibration you feel through the floor. It files every bit of it under a single heading, which is danger that has arrived without warning and refuses to explain itself. When that happens, his body does exactly what millions of years of survival built it to do, flooding with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline in the fight-or-flight response that Dr. Bethany Shia, a veterinarian and co-founder of CodaPet, describes taking over when the brain reads a situation as a true threat. His heart rate climbs and his muscles load up, and here is the part that should change how you see him forever, because in that flooded state he loses the ability to think clearly at all. And the experts who study this put it plainly, that a panicked dog is not being bad or stubborn, he has simply lost the ability to reason. That is why a calm, obedient family dog who has never once tested a boundary will suddenly slip his collar, clear a fence he has never jumped, or crash through a screen door, and why he seems to go deaf to you calling him, because he is not ignoring you, he genuinely cannot hear you through the panic. I want to be honest about the stakes, not to frighten you, but because the numbers show why doing nothing is a gamble, and more pets go missing on the 4th of July than on any other day of the entire year, according to the national animal welfare groups that track this. While in the days right after the holiday, shelters across the country report a surge of roughly 30 to 60% in lost pets, with the 5th of July becoming one of the busiest intake days they see, and emergency hospitals feeling it too as they take in dogs struck by cars while running blind from a sound they could not escape. I am not going to leave you sitting in fear though, because there is real good news underneath all of it, and it should shape everything you do tonight, which is that most lost dogs actually do come home, since research on lost pets has found that around 93% of them are eventually recovered, so if the worst ever does happen to you, please do not give up looking. Whether your dog ends up in that lucky majority though, comes down more than almost anything else to one specific thing, and I will circle back to it near the end, because it is the piece most people forget, and the piece that quietly decides the outcome. Let me start with the mistakes, since avoiding them costs you nothing and undoes most of the damage. And the biggest one by far is punishment, meaning any version of it. Even a sharp word when your terrified dog has an accident on the floor, or chews the corner of a door, because every veterinary source worth listening to agrees that punishing a frightened dog only deepens the fear, since now the night carries a second threat stacked on top of the first. The next mistake is the one I made on that bathroom floor, letting your own nerves show, because your dog watches you constantly and takes his emotional temperature from yours. So when you are tense and fussing, he reads it as confirmation that the danger is real, and while you need not pretend to be a statue, you do have to become the steadiest thing in the room. There is one more mistake even careful people fall into, reaching for the wrong kind of calm, because there is an old sedative called acapramazine that some owners still use, and on its own it does something unintentionally cruel. Since one veterinary clinic explains that it sedates the body while doing nothing to touch the fear. So the dog lies there looking peaceful while inside. He is living the full terror, now unable to flee it. And I raise this because the goal tonight is never a dog who looks knocked out, but a dog who feels safe. So whatever you give him belongs in a conversation with your own veterinarian. And you must never dip into a human medicine cabinet on your own, because a dose that helps a person can badly harm a dog. Here is how you build the night, and it begins well before the first firework, with a quiet room deep inside your house. Ideally, an interior room or closet with few or no windows, and as far from the noise as your home allows, because fewer windows means less sound and none of those sudden flashes, and you want it to feel like a den rather than a punishment. So pile in the familiar blankets and the bed he already loves, and maybe a shirt you have worn, so your scent is in there with him. And if he adores his crate and treats it as a safe cave, then use it, but leave the door open. And please do not lock a dog into a crate for the first time on the loudest night of the year, since a den only works if he already believes it is safe. Once the space is ready, your next job is to bury those booms under other sound, one of the cheapest and most powerful things you can do all evening, though do not settle for a single source, because the veterinary school at Cornell suggests layering two kinds at once, something like a fan running alongside soft music, since two layers mask those sharp cracks far better than one. You can also add a pressure wrap, one of those snug vests that work like swaddling an infant by applying gentle, constant pressure across the body. And in one trial at Tufts University, after 5 uses, around 89% of owners reported at least partial improvement in their dog's fear. Though the catch is that you should introduce it on a calm, ordinary day rather than yanking it on mid-panic, and a calming pheromone diffuser nearby can add another layer. Since products like Adaptil release a synthetic version of the scent a mother dog gives off to reassure her puppies and work best when you start them a couple of weeks ahead. The day itself matters more than most people realize, so wear your dog out early with a proper walk or a long play session in the morning or afternoon, so that by the time the sky gets loud, he already carries that pleasant heaviness of a dog who has spent his energy, and take him out for his last bathroom break while it is still light and quiet. And here is the rule I beg every owner to follow, which is to keep him on a leash even inside your own fenced yard, because one unexpected boom is all it takes for a dog to launch over a fence he has respected his whole life. As evening comes, close every window and door, draw the curtains against the flashes, get those 2 layers of sound going before the first bang, and give his mind something to chew on, quite literally, with a frozen food puzzle or a stuffed Kong, because the slow, repetitive act of licking genuinely helps a dog soothe himself and pulls his attention away from the sky. If there is any way for you to be in that room with him, then be there, because I know it is not always possible, but many dogs with noise fear also carry some separation anxiety, so leaving them alone only compounds the distress. And if he wants to burrow into your side or sleep pressed against you all night, then let him, giving no thought to the old myth that you are rewarding his fear, because you are not, and that contact is unlikely to cause any harm, and may genuinely lower his stress response, so you are simply being the safe place he already believes you are. For the dog who still cannot settle no matter how perfect the room is, the one who paces and pants through everything, this is the conversation to have with your veterinarian, and to have it early rather than at 9 o'clock on the holiday, because there are genuinely good medications now, and the best are not sedatives that trap the terror inside, but true anti-anxiety drugs that lower the fear itself. One that vets reach for often is trazodone, which they describe as turning down the volume on the anxiety without knocking the dog out. And for nighttime specifically, an evening dose can be the very thing that finally lets a dog sleep through it. While there is also a gel called Cilio that goes on the gums and works within about half an hour, along with gabapentin, which many vets use for its calming properties. Whatever your vet recommends, 2 things hold true across all of them. The first being that you give it well before the first firework, usually a couple of hours ahead for something like trazodone, because if you wait for the opening boom, the panic already has a head start you cannot catch. And the second being that you do a test run on an ordinary quiet evening a week or 2 beforehand, so you know exactly how your dog responds before the real night arrives. Now back to the one thing I promised, the piece that decides whether your dog joins the 93% who make it home, and it is identification. Plain and unglamorous, and absolutely decisive. Because a dog who can be identified gets returned, while one who cannot, too often, does not. And the gap is not small. Since one large study found that dogs fitted with a microchip were reunited with their families about 52% of the time, compared with only about 2% for dogs with no chip at all. So tonight, before anything else, put a collar on your dog with a tag that carries your current phone number, and leave it on until morning. And if he is chipped, take 5 minutes to call the registry and confirm your number and address are up to date, because a microchip tied to an old phone number cannot bring anyone home. And if your dog ends up choosing a corner and wedging himself behind the couch to ride the whole night out, understand that this is not a failure and not something you need to fix. Because hiding is a perfectly healthy way for a dog to cope, and as long as he returns to his normal self once the noise stops, you can simply let him keep his spot and stay close. For years, I believed my dog would eventually get used to fireworks. He never did. What finally changed wasn't him, it was the way I prepared for the night. Creating a calm routine, setting up a safe space, and understanding what he was experiencing turned one of the most stressful nights of the year into one he could actually sleep through. Every dog deserves that kind of comfort, and yours can have it too, with a little preparation. Now I'd love to hear from you. What has helped your dog stay calm during fireworks? Or what tip are you planning to try first tonight? Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.